stew is ready to go, and I've cut the peppers into bigger chunks, and same with the onion. I like them big because it just gives it a rustic feel, and it's not a lot of work in terms of mincing or making these into really small pieces, so very quick. And same with the garlic that I'm using. I'm actually gonna throw some crushed garlic in there, but I'm not gonna mince it or anything. I'm just gonna let that garlic kind of give the whole meat dish its flavor. And that's what I really love about it. It's very rustic. So what I have right now is 2 tablespoons of olive oil cooking in the Dutch oven. And I'm gonna add my onion. So we're just gonna cook this onion until they become translucent. And then I'm gonna add the peppers. And that takes about 3 to 4 minutes on high heat. And that's it. And then after that, what we'll do is add the lamb. So while that's cooking, let's talk about the lamb. I've bought boneless shoulder pieces. Now you can get the bone in and you can get chunkier pieces. That's all up to you. Actually, this is a great stew with the bone-in lamb. But if you did that, I would get the bigger pieces just because it will come off the bone really easy. You won't find any small bone pieces in the stew, and that's important. So I've just asked my butcher to cut this into smaller cubes and no bones. So it's just fine that way. So you do need a little more oil if you're not having any bones, because you do need to add a little more fat. But any way you like it, this is a very versatile dish. So let me check the onion. And they're already getting really nice and oiled. Now I don't want to brown them too much because I want to give the peppers some chance to get that oil too. So they're looking really nice. So now this comes to be about 2 cups of peppers, and this was two large red peppers that I bought. You really want to get them in season. If it's summertime, get the fresh ones. But you can use roasted peppers like the jarred peppers if you're making this in the winter. So I want to coat both the onion and the pepper with lots of oil, so that 2 to 4 tablespoons is really going to do the job. And the house smells wonderful with that smell of onion and peppers. Very, very Italian. Okay. And whenever you're cooking meat, you want to make sure that you're not putting it into the pan when it's really cold. So you don't want to leave meat out for too long, of course, but you want to make sure that you've given it some time to take the chill out. That way the meat won't, the fibers in the meat won't burn. So if you put cold meat into a hot pan, all the fibers will stick to the pan, and it won't be very nice. So you really want to make sure that you give it some time, 10-15 minutes at the least, on the counter. So that's how I do it. Smelling really, really, really good. Now you can add your spices now just to the peppers and onions if you want to, or you can wait until you add the meat. But in this case, we can just go ahead and add just salt and pepper. Sea salt is great, Himalayan pink salt is fine, freshly ground black pepper always if you can. So I use about 1 to 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 to 2 teaspoons of pepper. Now some people like less or more. I just encourage everybody to taste as you cook. Of course, after the meat has been cooked, taste your dish to make sure that anything that you need to be adjusted is adjusted while you're cooking the dish, not after it's cooked. You never ever want to salt a dish when it's finished, or things will just taste salty. You want to salt things as you're cooking. So those spices are mixing in really, really well. I'm just going to give that a couple more minutes before I add the meat. And then what we have are 2 cups of tomato sauce. This is what makes it really Italian, and with the addition of about half a cup of water, it's going to be a stew. It's going to be something that is going to really tenderize and cook the meat over time. So for 1 pound of meat, 45 minutes to an hour, a little bit more meat, 2 hours will really, really tenderize it, and that meat will be so soft and tender you could cut it with a spoon, and that's what I really love. So we also have some dried parsley, garlic, and chili pepper. Now, chili pepper gives it a really nice flavor. This is Turkish chili pepper called Urfa biber. It's a little bit hot, but that's okay. If you don't want this to be spicy at all, you can just leave this out. But maybe add something else. Maybe add another herb, like basil's great. Anything else like thyme or bay leaves. That's also great and very, very Italian. I'm just keeping it super simple. And when I developed this recipe, it was just what I had on hand, and I just really love the flavors. But feel free to play around and give it the flavors that you really like. So basil, garlic, and now it's going to be time to add the meat. Now, I want the meat to get really nice and browned. So it's important to have a big enough pot for the amount of meat that you're using. So for 1 pound of meat, this is a good sized pot. Even for 2 pounds. But the reason is I don't want this meat to steam, I want it to get brown. So I need to give it its time in the pot before I add any kind of liquids. Otherwise it won't have that nice browning that so many people like in their dishes. And I really like when meat is nice and seared first before the liquids are added. So just keep giving it a whirl and make sure that meat touches the bottom of the pan so the flame really, really gets to it. Okay, it's going to give it about 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll check up on it and add our sauce and water, and then let it simmer for about an hour.